Parents' relentless grandchild pressure. Did I destroy everything by revealing my pain? I, a 32-year-old woman, am currently adrift in a desolate sea of anger, guilt, and raw grief. My family, once my presumed bedrock, now feels like a war-torn ruin, and I'm genuinely tormented by the question of whether I'm the one who ignited its destruction. My parents, Clara, 60F, and Arthur, 66M, are both retired and, in their own minds, impeccable parents. From the outside, we presented a facade of a loving, close-knit family, Sunday dinners, holiday traditions, and a seemingly endless stream of parental guidance. But beneath that veneer of perfection, there was always an undercurrent of intense pressure, particularly from my mother, centered around one singular topic: grandchildren. I was their only daughter, and the expectation to produce mini-me's was a palpable, almost suffocating force that began almost before my wedding. My younger brother, Leo, 29, was the free spirit, currently traveling the world with his partner, unapologetically child-free. While my parents would occasionally make polite noises about Leo settling down, their true focus, their relentless pressure, was always squarely on me. I met my husband, Ben, 33, in college. He's kind, supportive, and everything I ever dreamed of. We married 5 years ago, deeply in love, excited for our future, which absolutely included children. We always envisioned a bustling home, the pitter-patter of little feet, and the comforting chaos of a growing family. My parents, however, accelerated their grandchild agenda the moment we said, "I do." Every family gathering became an interrogation. "So, when are we getting a grandchild? Your clock is ticking, you know. All your cousins have kids, Clara. Don't you want to join the club?" My father, while gentler, rarely challenged my mother's directives, often serving as her quiet enabler, smoothing over the edges of her relentless questions with a gentle smile and a shrug, never understanding the pain it caused. A defining event, though one they were completely unaware of, happened 3 years ago. Ben and I had been trying to conceive for 2 years with no success. After countless doctor's appointments, tests, and heartbreaking disappointments, we received the devastating diagnosis: unexplained infertility. Our dream of having biological children was slipping away, and we embarked on the emotionally and financially draining journey of fertility treatments. This private battle, fought in silence and tears, intensified the pain of my parents' constant pressure exponentially. Each insensitive comment, each casual remark about grandchildren, felt like a cruel twist of the knife. I internalized their desires, believing that my inability to conceive was a personal failure, a profound disappointment to them, even as a quiet, desperate rage simmered beneath the surface. Leo, meanwhile, would send postcards from exotic locations, always with a cheerful message about his latest adventure, a stark contrast to my internal struggle. The emotional tone of our relationship was always a blend of deep-seated familial obligation, a desperate yearning for their acceptance, and a growing, suffocating sense of unspoken resentment for the life I felt was being dictated, and now denied, by circumstances outside my control. My deep love for my parents was always tempered by this persistent feeling of being an afterthought, a reliable but ultimately disappointing vessel for their genetic legacy. This core imbalance, buried beneath years of forced smiles and unspoken pain, was about to erupt with devastating consequences for all of us. The slow, grinding build-up to this family implosion has been a relentless, crushing pressure beneath the surface of my life for the past 5 years, escalating dramatically after our infertility diagnosis. My parents' subtle nudges about grandchildren transformed into persistent, probing inquiries that felt like an open wound being constantly poked. Every conversation, every phone call, inevitably circled back to the same topic. "Have you seen the new baby clothes at the mall, Clara? So cute," my mother would say, holding up a tiny onesie. "Your cousin Sarah just had her second. She makes it look so easy," my father would add, completely oblivious to the pain behind my forced smile. My emotional distance from them widened into a chasm. Any attempt I made to discuss my life, my career, or my relationship with Ben would be quickly rerouted to the grandchild agenda. "That's nice, dear, but have you thought about what clinic you'll use for help?" my mother would ask, lowering her voice conspiratorially. Their blatant insensitivity, their complete disregard for my obvious discomfort, felt like a profound betrayal. I was fighting a silent, agonizing battle with infertility, a battle that consumed me emotionally and physically, and they were relentlessly pushing me further into the abyss of shame and inadequacy. Ben was my rock during this period, attending every painful appointment, holding me through every tearful night, and quietly witnessing the growing toll my parents' pressure was taking on me. He urged me to tell them, to set boundaries, but the fear of their disappointment, of shattering their idealized image of a perfect family, paralyzed me. The subtle betrayals became less subtle, more blatant. My mother started buying baby items, little blankets and booties, and leaving them at our house with a cheerful, "Just thought you might need these soon." She'd constantly send me articles about boosting fertility, or miracle cures, each one a fresh sting. The early warning signs were screaming at me: constant anxiety before family gatherings, the way I'd mentally prepare myself for another slight, another painful comparison to a fertile cousin. My mental health began to deteriorate. I was perpetually exhausted, stressed, and consumed by a bitter sense of injustice. I'd avoid family gatherings, making flimsy excuses, which only led to more calls from my mother about my antisocial tendencies, or unwillingness to connect with family. Leo, meanwhile, would occasionally call, detached from the family drama, oblivious to my internal struggle. His carefree, child-free life, while perfectly valid for him, served as a stark contrast to the immense pressure I was under, intensifying my feelings of unfairness. The tipping point came a few months ago, after our third failed round of IVF. The emotional and physical toll was immense. Ben and I were devastated, clinging to each other, trying to process yet another loss. I was raw, vulnerable, and completely drained. And then my mother called, her voice bright and cheerful. "Clara, darling! Your cousin Sarah just announced she's pregnant with her third. Isn't that wonderful? Such a fertile family. When are you going to give us some good news like that?" The casual cruelty of her words, delivered at the absolute worst possible moment, ignited a quiet, simmering rage within me. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. I knew deep down that this relentless pressure, this constant invalidation of my pain, had to stop. The dam was cracking, and I knew, with a terrifying certainty, that it was about to burst. The illusion of our family harmony was crumbling, revealing a gaping, festering wound of unfairness, unacknowledged sacrifice, and a profound disrespect for my deepest sorrow. The powder keg finally detonated last Sunday morning. It was Mother's Day, and we were gathered at my parents' house for a brunch that was supposed to be a celebration. The air, however, was thick with unspoken tension, at least for me. Ben held my hand under the table, sensing my rising anxiety. My parents, beaming in their roles as proud matriarch and patriarch, were holding court, surrounded by my aunts, uncles, and cousins, many of whom had children, and some, even grandchildren. The conversation, predictably, veered towards family, babies, and the joys of grandparenthood. My mother, holding a mimosa, looked around the table with a theatrical sigh. "Oh, if only I had more grandchildren to spoil! I just adore babies, you know." Her gaze lingered on me, a pointed, almost accusatory stare. My father nodded solemnly beside her. I felt a surge of incandescent rage, a hot, searing anger that consumed every rational thought. This was it. The culmination of years of relentless pressure, of private suffering, of feeling invisible and inadequate in their eyes. I took a deep breath, my voice surprisingly steady. "Actually, Mom," I said, my voice cutting through the cheerful chatter, "you might not be getting any more grandchildren from me." The table went silent. My mother's smile froze. My father's eyes widened with shock. Ben squeezed my hand, a silent warning, but I was beyond stopping. "What are you talking about, Clara?" My mother finally managed, her voice laced with confusion, then irritation. "Don't be silly. You and Ben will have children when the time is right. We know you're trying." "Trying, Mom?" I retorted, my voice rising, all the years of suppressed pain, the countless heartbreaking doctor's visits, the failed IVF rounds, exploding to the surface. We've been trying for 5 years. We've spent our life savings on fertility treatments. We've been through 3 rounds of IVF, each one ending in crushing disappointment. We've been told we have unexplained infertility, and the chances of us having biological children are incredibly, devastatingly slim. My voice cracked with raw pain and accusation, tears finally streaming down my face. The room was utterly silent. My aunts gasped. My cousins looked away uncomfortably. My mother's face contorted, initially with shock, then with a mixture of horror and what looked like genuine bewilderment. "Clara, why didn't you tell us?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why did you keep this from us? Why didn't I tell you?" I shrieked, the words laced with bitter irony. "Because every conversation, every holiday, every family gathering became an interrogation about grandchildren. Because you never saw me, Mom. You only saw me as a means to an end, a factory for your grandbabies. You never once asked about my happiness, my well-being, my struggles. You just pushed and pushed and pushed, completely oblivious to the immense, agonizing pain you were inflicting." My father finally intervened, his voice stern, trying to restore some semblance of order. "Clara, that's enough. This is Mother's Day. This is not the time for such dramatics. You're upsetting everyone." "Upsetting everyone, Dad?" I roared, turning my furious gaze to him. "You think I wanted to spill my deepest, most agonizing secret at Mother's Day brunch? You both made it impossible for me to tell you quietly. You created an environment where my infertility felt like a personal failure, a profound disappointment to you, a dirty secret I had to hide. You both prioritized your desire for grandchildren over my emotional well-being, over my very existence." I grabbed Ben's hand, pulled him up, and stormed out, leaving them all stunned, shattered, and utterly silent amidst their perfect Mother's Day celebration. Leo, who had been sitting quietly, looked up at me with wide, horrified eyes as I passed. The confrontation was brutal, raw, and utterly devastating. My parents, genuinely believing they were acting out of love and excitement for their family's future, felt personally attacked and blindsided. I, consumed by years of unacknowledged pain and the immense pressure of their relentless expectations, finally erupted. Both parties had understandable, though deeply flawed, motivations, creating a profound, painful moral ambiguity that now hung heavy in the shattered air. The immediate aftermath of that explosive confrontation was a profound, suffocating silence. Ben and I drove home in a daze, the scent of expensive perfume, and the acrid tang of shattered dreams clinging to me. My body shook uncontrollably, and the white-hot rage that had fueled my outbursts slowly drained away, replaced by a chilling numbness, then a crushing wave of grief. It felt like I hadn't just ended a fight, I had detonated my entire family structure, the one I had so painstakingly navigated for decades, only to discover its core was built on conditional love and deeply ingrained expectations. The raw, open wound of my infertility, now exposed to the harsh light of judgment, was a physical ache in my chest, a constant, gnawing pain that made it hard to breathe. For the first few days, I was a ghost in my own life. I barely ate, and sleep was an elusive torment, plagued by nightmares of my mother's horrified face, my father's stunned disappointment, and the shocked expressions of my extended family. My mind raced, constantly replaying every word of the argument, every subtle slight from the past, every instance of their relentless pressure. I felt foolish, utterly naive, for holding on to the hope that they would ever truly see or accept me for who I was, rather than for my reproductive capacity. The guilt also started to creep in, an insidious whisper suggesting I was too harsh, too selfish, too quick to air such a devastating truth at a family holiday. Had I been too extreme? Did I destroy any chance of reconciliation by revealing the depths of my pain so brutally and publicly? My daily life became an almost unbearable burden. My fulfilling career as a high school counselor, which usually brought me immense satisfaction, now felt distant and impersonal. My focus was shattered. I'd stare blankly at my computer screen for hours, unable to concentrate, my mind trapped in a relentless loop of anger, sadness, and furious questioning. My appetite vanished, and a constant, dull headache throbbed behind my eyes, a physical manifestation of the emotional turmoil. The dream of starting a family, which had been so central to my identity, now felt irrevocably tainted, shrouded in a new layer of public shame and private grief. The conflict also profoundly affected my other relationships. Ben, bless his kind heart, was my unwavering anchor. He listened patiently as I poured out my heart, offered constant validation, and simply held me as I cried for hours. "You were brave, Clara," he'd whisper. "You did what you had to do. They needed to hear it." His validation was a balm, but it couldn't fully heal the gaping wound. My closest friends, whom I finally confided in, were shocked but supportive, sharing stories of their own struggles with complex family dynamics or fertility issues. But even their support couldn't fill the void left by the potential loss of my family. My parents were distraught. My mother called a few times, her voice strained, pleading with me to come to my senses and apologize for the scene. She seemed completely unable to grasp the severity of her pressure or the fundamental emotional damage she had inflicted. This inability to see my perspective, to acknowledge their role, felt like a final, crushing betrayal. The silence from Leo, my brother, was deafening. He was caught in the middle and chose to avoid contact. The grief for the family I thought I had, for the love I always craved, was profound and almost unbearable. I missed the ease of superficial interactions, even as I recognized that living a lie was far more damaging. The weight of it all, the loneliness, the confusion, and the terrifying uncertainty of what comes next, felt utterly crushing. It's been almost 3 weeks since the explosion at the Mother's Day brunch, and the silence from my parents is absolute. No calls, no texts, no attempts at reconciliation from their end. My brother Leo has sent a few terse texts hinting at his discomfort and confusion, but no real support. Ben has been my unwavering anchor, my steadfast presence through this storm, but I feel the strain on him. I've spent countless sleepless nights replaying every moment of that confrontation, every subtle slight from childhood, every agonizing fertility appointment. My mind is a whirlwind of conflicting emotions and doubts, and I desperately need an outside perspective to make sense of this wreckage. Was I too harsh? Did I go too far by publicly exposing my deepest, most painful secret at a family holiday? I understand that from my parents' perspective, they genuinely believed they were acting out of love and a desire for grandchildren, a natural progression of family life. They might feel attacked, unappreciated for all they did provide, despite the control and pressure. Perhaps they truly feel that my outburst was an overreaction, a cruel way to deliver devastating news. Is my years of pent-up resentment and exhaustion coloring my judgment, making me an unfair accuser, an ungrateful daughter who prioritized her pain over their feelings? I can't shake the guilt of having caused them such shock and distress. On the other hand, the weight of being perpetually questioned, judged, and pressured about my reproductive choices, while privately battling the immense pain of infertility, this feels like a profound, lifelong injustice. The feeling of being unloved for who I truly am, rather than for who they wanted me to be, a mother, is a pain that runs bone deep. My resentment had been simmering for so long. Their constant, unthinking comments, especially after our third failed IVF, felt like emotional torture. Was it wrong of me to finally demand autonomy and recognition for my true worth, for my existing life and my pain, even if it meant a dramatic, public confrontation that shattered our family's fragile peace and delivered devastating news? I felt like I was fighting for my dignity, for my right to emotional safety, for the very essence of my happiness, even if it meant destroying their idealized vision of our family. So, Reddit, I'm turning to you because I'm lost and heartbroken. Was I wrong for finally exploding at my parents, revealing my infertility at Mother's Day brunch due to their relentless pressure for grandchildren, leading to a complete rupture in our family? Was my outburst justified, a necessary act to finally liberate myself from years of emotional torture and an inauthentic existence? Or did I simply destroy any chance of reconciliation and cause irreversible pain, making myself the villain in this tragic story? I need honest, unbiased perspectives, Because right now, I'm consumed by guilt, grief, and confusion, and I don't know how to navigate this fractured family dynamic or heal from this profound emotional wound.